77479.
No, there is a different one for. 77.
Can you just spell it to my trap? Just spell it to my trap.
Now you correct yourself, right?
She is.
I apologize. Hello, everybody.
Alyssa, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, you're good.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. I call the February 12th, 2025 meeting of the Building Standards Commission to order at 5:30 p.m. Attention, members of the first item on our agenda is public comment. Have we received any request to comment card?
No, Vice Chair, we didn't.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on an agenda item? Section 2, public comment.
Yeah.
We're aware pursuant to Texas Government Code, section 551. Citizens are permitted to address the city council board and or commission in person with regard to matters posted for consideration on the agenda. Okay, we didn't receive any request to comment cards. So our next item is item 3. Approval of the February 28th, 2024 meeting minutes. Are there any questions, corrections, or comments to those?
Can we have the meeting minutes?
They were sent via email, I think. So I think if you log into your this agenda, it's a simple click. We can get that to you after the meeting.
Thank you.
For sure. If there are no comments, may I have a motion? And also a second. I have a motion by Sanjay and Lana. All those in favor? Aye. I'm sorry, can you guys?
Nice.
Section 4, orientation. Our next item will be presented by multiple staff members. So we have Joshua Doyle, Chief Building Official, Andrew Popescu, and Building Inspector, Nicole Solis, Assistant Director of Neighborhood Services, and Meredith Reed, City Attorney, Executive Director.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome here. Today, again, we're here for our annual Building Standards Commission orientation. Yay. We'll go over a little real quick on the agenda what we're going to go over tonight. Again, for our approved ordinance, policy states that staff will hold an annual orientation where we'll go over your duties, any limitations, responsibilities that the board may have. The workshop today will include introduction of all the members, new appointees, which I don't think we have any, staff that we have presenting today. We'll go over some authority, limitations, responsibilities under any state statutes, city charters, or city adopted ordinances. We will go over your roles, responsibilities, and attendance that we all need to have. We'll also go over policies, rules and procedures, any materials or topics that are relevant to the work of the commission. And also we'll follow up with some any legal considerations, open meetings, or any conflicts of interest, okay? I'd like to again welcome the members that did show up today. Mr. Lusky, Mr. Qureshi, Vice Chair Gomez, Goldberg. Thank you, Ms. Goldberg. Mr. Jane, Cody, and Aurora. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna hand this off now to one of our inspectors. This will be the first time presenting, so for like tradition, we'd like to give an opportunity for our staff members. Andrew's one of our building inspector threes. Before I hand it off, I would like to say that we are having discussions to consider either like a quarterly or biannual training for the BSC board, okay? What we're kind of envisioning is some trial cases on building safety issues, right? Like dangerous buildings, which we have had cases in the past where the board was used for that, but also one that I don't know if it's ever been used for was code appeals. A lot of what y'all do also, you'll have authority to make appeals to code. Okay, so we're having discussions and consideration on that, and we'll follow up with how we move forward with that. Okay, Andrew.
Good evening. Once again, I'm Andrew, Destiny Building Inspector 3. So we'll start off with a commission overview. So obviously commission overview comes from the state law, chapter 54 of our local government code. For the city of Sugar Land, our code ordinance is chapter 2, article 3, section 2-53. We follow the 2021 International Code Council section 113 for that. Now for the quasi judicial body responsibilities, our first is hear the evidence and receive testimony. Our second will be issue order similar in nature to court. These decisions only applied to the state district court, and there is no appeal to the city council. Third, the zoning board of adjustments is the city's only other quasi judicial body. For commission members, members are appointed by a city council by a 2-year staggered term. The board has 7 members with 3 alternates. Members should have experience training in building construction and property maintenance. And also the city council appoints the chair and the vice annually. For quorum and voting, the majority of the commission, which is 4, shall constitute a quorum. Members who are present are required to vote on each item unless they have a conflict of interest. Attendance, members are expected to attend most of the meetings. If absent, it should be reported to the staff liaison prior to the hearing date. Any member that misses 3 consecutive meetings is deemed to have automatically resigned. The alternates will serve in the absences of regular members on a rotating basis. Now for annual training, there are 3 annual trainings. The first is the Building Standard Commission orientation. The second is the Open Meeting Act training found online through Attorney General's website. And the third is the ethics training given by the city's office. Executive sessions are utilized to receive legal advice from the city attorney regarding the matter of the agenda. Keeping in mind there are no final actions, decisions, or votes during the closed meetings. Communication is privileged and should not be discussed outside the sessions. Public, commission, or media. The city secretary will document by certified agenda. Now for conflicts, members must abstain from discussing and voting on matter before the commission when the member or alternate has a conflict of interest under the state law of city ordinance, or when the member or alternate believes that he or she cannot render a fair and impartial decision in matter due to personal circumstances. Members or alternates with a conflict of interest must inform the city secretary of the conflict prior to the start of the meeting and file a conflict of interest affidavit. For commission duties, the commission must hear and decide on appeals based, a claim of true intent in adopting building codes, or rules legally adopted by incorrectly interpreted, or the provision of the code do not apply. The commission authorizes variances for proposed equal or better forms of construction to the adopted building code. The commission adjudicates unsafe structure cases arising under dangerous building regulations. And here applies regarding the denial or revocation of a residential rental license. For building code and appeals variances, an owner may appeal a decision or determination made by the building official for any of the following reasons. The first, the building official rejected or refused to approve any matter of construction or materials used in the installation or alteration of a building structure or service system. Second, the provision of code do not apply to the case. An equal or better form of construction proposed or true intent meaning of the code has been misconstrued or incorrectly interpreted. The board shall not have authority to waive any requirements of this code or interpret administration of the code. Now, Nicole Solis will become a presenter.
Hey, everybody. So again, my name is Nicole Solis. I'm the Assistant Director of Neighborhood Services. So I'll pick it up here. So really just talking about the commission's authorities and where that comes from. We mentioned it earlier. It comes from our code of ordinances under chapter 3. And looking at the standards that are outlined in the ordinance and what we've been. So, looking at here, standards for property, is to be ordered repaired, vacated, secured. So really this section outlines, what you can as a board order, be done with a property.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
My neighborhood has 2 abandoned homes.
Okay.
These are both in the Fort Bend CAD, listed close to $2 million.
Okay.
We've had, what should I do? We call the police, so they came and closed the doors or something, they've been abandoned for more than a year. What should we do?
So what?
As a board official and as a resident, 2 different things.
Yeah, so if there's concerns regarding property maintenance issues of the property itself, you can always report that to code enforcement, which is part of my group. And we would look at each property because we get complaints about properties on an almost daily basis, right? So my staff looks at the property, looks to see if there are property maintenance issues that can be addressed through our city ordinances, because again, we're not the HOA.
Correct.
So we enforce minimum property maintenance standards. So we can do site visits and look at that. Now, if we find some condition of the property that would fall under one of the categories that would constitute a dangerous building, then we could bring the case here. Now, as a neighbor, you would have to recuse yourself from that discussion because you have a vested interest in the outcome of that case.
Correct.
But if we found that the property had conditions that fell under our dangerous building ordinances, then we could have a discussion about it here.
Okay, I think you answered both questions. As a board member or of the commission, I cannot attend that, but I can complain as a resident, right?
You can always complain that you are a resident, so
Yeah,
you're well within your rights to share concerns regarding that. You just wouldn't be able to
That's
take
brilliant.
part in a case involving
Yes,
that.
sounds good, thank you.
So a building can be deemed dangerous if there's a wall or vertical member that lists too far. If there's severe damage to the foundation, up to, more than 33%. If there's improperly distributed load, or if there's damage by fire or wind or some kind of, major damage. We've had cases for where there's been holes in roofs and all kinds of situations. If there's dilapidation or decay or unsafe or unsanitary conditions, we'll go through some photos and talk about those because we have had cases like that we've brought before this board. If there's inadequate light, air, or sanitation facilities that, in an effort to protect health, safety, and general welfare. Again, we've had cases of that here. If there's inadequate facilities for egress. Other violations we've brought before this board before. If there's more than any 2 code violations or a single violation posing imminent threat to life or property. Now, with this one, we do try and be reasonable, right? Because I could say you have high grass and you have a rotted section of soffit, and technically that's more than 2 code violations, but we wouldn't bring that to this commission. So everything within reason. And then if there's a property that's unsecured from unauthorized entry, which we've also had brought before this board before. So buildings can be boarded up, fenced, or secured if they're deemed dangerous. And again, it's when the building constitutes a danger to the public. And we have a means utilized to secure the building. If there's not a condition that would prevent folks from accessing the building. So the process by which we bring things to the board is we always try, code enforcement and the building department always try very much to bring properties into compliance before we have to present something to the board. So we conduct an investigation after getting a complaint, or we could have inspectors that just drive through the neighborhood and see, oh my gosh, what the we do issue a notice of violation. Again, our goal is always voluntary compliance, so we'll go through that process first. If that doesn't work, or if the condition is just so horrendous that we cannot wait through that standard process, which again, we've done with this board before, we will issue notices for a hearing. hold the hearing, at which point the board will issue an order for what needs to be done with the property. Okay, so during the discussion, we really need to make sure that those discussions are limited directly to the case. So sometimes, you know, you're interested in what's going on in someone's life that would lead them to have this condition at their house or whatnot. Not something that we can discuss as part of a public hearing. If someone says, I don't have the financial means, we can't say, well, how much money do you have in your bank account? Because none of that is really pertinent to determining how to handle a case, right? The fact of the matter is the property is dilapidated. There's something that the board needs to order be done at the property, and those are the facts of the case. So only evidence or testimony provided during staff presentation or the public hearing may be taken into consideration. Now, you may be curious about a particular property because you do get notified of what properties are coming up. But we can't talk about what you may or may not have seen in your free time or heard on social media or seen someone post about on Nextdoor. We can only talk about the things that are presented here in this room during a hearing. Okay. And then again, the focus of the discussion really needs to be on the property condition and what is required to get that property into compliance. Okay, so after we've had the discussion, this commission will issue an order. We will make those findings are public. You will be voting on this order in Novus Agenda. So we have discussion. There's a consensus, kind of like, Ms. Gomez asked, do I have first a motion, second? We vote in Novus Agenda. So our hearings are in the council chambers, so you can vote on it. Those orders may be filed with Fort Bend County, depending on the situation, we typically do. And then copies of the findings and the orders are always sent to the property owner and any lien holders or heirs that we find for a property. Okay. And we post them in the local newspaper, just to cover all bases. So some examples of dangerous building include structures that are dilapidated. You'll see a lot of debris that's falling down. I know folks don't think that this happens in Sugar Land, but it very much does. Structures that underwent some fire damage. Depending on the situation, we do try and be cognizant of the fact that sometimes insurance claims can take a while to process. So, we try and be mindful of that, but sometimes they do lag, and the insurance property owners have found it beneficial for us to go ahead and move forward with the process just to push insurance companies along a little bit. We always have discussions with the property owners and we're mindful of that. We have unsanitary conditions and illegal construction. We've had hoarders of all kinds. We've seen that here. So lots of different conditions that we could bring before this board. We also have a residential rental licensing program. This is a program where all rental properties are offered for lease here in the city of Sugar Land go through an exterior inspection annually and an interior inspection whenever it comes up vacant. So before a new tenant moves in, we'll schedule an interior inspection. So there are times where we may refuse to issue a license, or we may even come across a condition that requires that we revoke the license. So whenever that is the case, the property owner does have the right to appeal that to you. So we, as staff, officially notify the property owner of the denial or the revocation, and then they can request an appeal.
Sorry, another question.
Sure.
So if somebody lists their home on Airbnb and they don't ask for a license,
Short-term rentals are not allowed in Sugar Land.
okay?
Mhm.
That's happening.
So that's that's something that you can report to us. We do also have a software that we use to try and find those. It's not 100%, perfect, right? But so if you feel like, if you believe that a property is being utilized for that purpose, you can always let code enforcement know, and that way we'll take care of that.
Will do.
Question.
Sure.
So does the city have the listing of all the rental properties?
We do.
Available-
It's available online.
available online?
Yeah. You can see it. Now have, the city has gone through a huge effort to make our information very, very publicly accessible. So it's called OpenGov, and you can find a lot of data online. And that listing is one of them. So some of the things that we check during those rental inspections, especially inside, is a lot of the electrical. We check GFCIs, we make sure that that where they're required to be located, they're actually there and that they all work. And then folks get really creative with their electrical wiring. So, you know, we've seen extension cords used as permanent wiring. It's pretty creative. Swimming pool closures are also very important for us. You are required to have, you know, self-closing latches and things like that. So those swimming pool closures are a big deal. Wanted to go ahead and introduce all of our team. But Lisa Kochikmeyer is the Director of
Planning and Development Services.
Remember your whole department. And then you've met Joshua. We have James Posey here. He is our Deputy Building Official. The person that y'all have been communicating with is actually Eleanor Hibbs. So that's Eleanor. Andrew presented earlier. Herc Meyer is our Interim Director for Public Works, so he's my boss. And then I am the Assistant Director of Neighborhood Services. Ornita Green is our Code Compliance Manager. And then we have Lily Gonzalez. She's not here tonight, but she is the supervisor directly over the code inspectors. And then James Serrano, he's not here, but he's our fire marshal. And really quickly, we wanted to give this group an update. We are assessing the new set of ICC codes. So we do anticipate adopting the 2024 ICC codes this year. So we may come to y'all with some major code updates during your next meeting or at some point. So
That's pretty good.
Yep.
2015 was adopted in 18.
I know. Yeah,
We're trying to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
there was a bit of a lag.
Yeah, we're trying not to miss the cycle this time, so.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, no, and we don't anticipate any heavy amendments. We do have some important ones that we think could prevent some crime that's been happening in the city, mainly on the commercial side. So we do have some cool amendments, but nothing heavy. We're hoping this is a fast adoption process, mainly because we have some things that it ties to, right? Like a city's overall ISO rating, which affects insurance premiums.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't realize your insurance premiums as a resident of the city is directly tied to, we get 3 scores, the fire department's ISO score, the building department's ISO score, and then the engineering department or anyone who handles floodplain gets a CRS score that handles flood insurance as well. So we want to make sure that we stay on top of that, because when insurance companies go to pull your premium amounts, they typically use the ISO rating to figure out, okay, is this in a safe city? Are the structures safe? Are we doing our job right? Because they measure things like who's your building official, what certifications do the inspectors have, what code are you on? So this is the code is actually the largest determining factor of a city's ISO rating as a number 1 factor. So for us, it's important to make sure that we're trying to stay with that.
That has a direct impact to the residents themselves.
When do you think it will be adopted?
Again, we have to bring it to council, right? We have to have multiple meetings on it, but we're hoping for a pretty fast process. Last year, we were able to do it in about 6 months. 6 to 8 months, which is actually pretty fast. You know, we use technology. We don't do closed meetings. You know, the old process when Clark was here, we did a meeting in this exact room. We'd bring in stakeholders, one electrical company, one.
Yeah.
We don't do that now because we say, hey, why don't we open it to the entire city? So what we do is pretty cool. I won't go too deep into detail on this, but I'll let you know what we do is we actually create a project webpage, which we're going to do again. And every time a permit is sold, an inspection is performed, there will be a link to that project webpage, as well as a form that they can fill out any concerns, any questions, and also a link to every single code that we're proposing to adopt and any amendments that we're wanting to bring forward. So what it does is it allows for that open communication, so we don't have to schedule 12 meetings over a year.
Yeah.
We can actually fast forward that process. Answer a question, we're hoping in 3 to 6 months. Aggressively 3 months, more realistically, probably 6 months.
No, that process started 2 years late, so.
Yeah, so we're on the 21 now. The 24s were released beginning of 24, and ICC is actually already going through the 27. We actually signed up as voting members of ICC. We're trying to get on the committee boards to actually start taking part in those code hearings now. So it's exciting, right? It's a lot of work, but we'll definitely keep you on the loop on any changes that come, okay?
Sugar Land safe.
One building at a time. That's what we say.
Makes us great.
Little things. Any other questions? Any other questions for us before
We hand it off.
we hand it off? Yeah, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't. You need to read the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm enjoying myself. We're at item number 5, annual ethics training, so presented by Meredith, City Attorney, Executive Director, so Meredith.
Okay. Open Meetings Act thing, as they were explaining to you, you've got to do what's on the agenda. Can't talk outside, you know, those legal stuff.
Just a quick question, didn't we do a ethics training just a month or month and a half
2
ago?
months ago in October.
You probably did,
Yes.
but so you already know the answers. It's gonna be really easy for you.
Okay.
But don't take away my glory. This is my favorite thing to do. So when they offered me an opportunity to come do it, I was like, you betcha. So you feel free to sing along or answer the questions, but this is my thing. So
Okay.
you can enjoy it twice. You already know the answers. Inside. Okay, so as you know, every year I do this as a game. This year, we're playing the game of ethics, because it's an ethics presentation. All images are property of Hasbro, not my own. And you're like, why do I have to do this? I just did this 2 months ago. I just did this a year ago. Our code of ethics is required. So our city council has decided that it's important that everybody annually get an update on this code as to what you need to do and how to be ethical. Fortunately, we've never really had any issues. Y'all have been fantastic, and I'd like to take credit. That's for my training. But I think it's probably because you're all wonderful people and you just have good common sense, because most of ethics is common sense. So you're receiving your training as required, and my goal for you is to successfully serve your term without having to go meet the Independent Ethics Review Board, testimony, and possibly get in trouble. So who gets to play this little game with us? Every year, members of city council, members of administrative and advisory boards, sometimes we invite former members, and even candidates for city council have one section they have to comply with. Now, I'm going to go over the rules that apply to everybody. Not all of them apply to your board, but I don't know what your future aspirations may be. You may want to serve on another board. You may want to go to city council, or you just may have a neighbor or an elected or appointed official that may be not following the rules. And you want to say, what were those rules? Okay, this is how I report them. So I'm going to give you the whole shebang, the whole story, and not just your small part. So there are 8 basic rules to this game. And you can see them all right there. And I'm going to go into detail because this is what I do. So the first one is conflict of interest. And Andrew has briefly spoke on that. So it's part of the Code of Ethics and it's state law. So there's 2 real things to keep in mind: the business entity and the real property. So business entity, if you have a building that comes before you for y'all to review, whether it's dangerous or that sort of thing, if you happen to own 10% of the fair market value of that business entity, or 15,000 of the fair market value, or receive 10% or more of your financial income in the past year from that business entity, congratulations, you cannot participate. You have to hope the rest of your board has attended training orientation like you have tonight and are ready to go. You have to file, like Andrew said, a conflict form, file it with the city clerk's office. Also real property. So if property comes before you and you have a value of 2.5 or more of the fair market value, you're conflicted out. You're not allowed to vote on it. Once again, you file with the city clerk's office. The other item you might have a conflict of interest in is if you're their neighbor. So whenever you guys have a hearing, it's not green card anymore, a postcard will be sent out for all properties within 200 feet of the property. If you get that notice in the mail, you have a statutory conflict of interest. You don't have to file a form, but you're not allowed to participate because you're within that 200 feet. State law believes that you have a special interest that's different from somebody like me who may live 1,000 or 1,500 feet away because it has a greater impact to your value. So you said, okay, I've got this conflict of interest. What am I going to do? You're going to file that disclosure statement at the city clerk's office. You're going to abstain. And number 3, leave the meeting room. We're home to the Houston Astros. There were rumors. They read signs. I know y'all are not this kind of people, and I'm not going to give you my opinion of the Astros, but so that there's no doubt. We ask you to leave the room so you're not throwing signs or whatever they may be, vote this way and have any suspicion because y'all are ethical people that use common sense.
What happens if somebody lives 400 feet away?
400 feet,
Mhm.
come sit in your chair, you're fine. State law only says that 200 feet. So if you're 201 feet, you're not conflicted out by state law. Yes, sir. So relationships, this doesn't apply to you because you're not voting on contracts, but like I said, I don't know your future aspirations. For all I know, you want to come hang out with me on Tuesday evenings and sit at a council meeting. If so, you cannot, or if so, when we enter into a contract, you must disclose whether or not you're related to the vendor. And relations, when we go through this, is you, your spouse, your parents, your children, aunt, uncle. Basically, the people that come and eat Thanksgiving dinner with you that you're related to. The best friends, people down the street, you don't have to disclose those. So taxable income from that vendor of 2,500 or more. And once again, the third degree comes to going to second degree. If you want an actual chart, I have one on my desk, beautiful circles. I can't memorize them. So gifts must be disclosed. This is my favorite thing. State law calls them gifts. I call them gifts. The district attorney's office calls them bribes. So you have to disclose these. You fill out a form, file it with the city clerk's office. Linda always looks forward to these because, like me, no one has ever offered to bribe her. We hold out hope that we can live vicariously through you, and somebody might say, hey, here's $50 if you vote for me. And we go, yay, somebody made the radar. So we have lodging, transportation, entertainment, and food. There's this little asterisk next to the food, and I'll explain that. But state law and our code of ethics says that you must disclose gifts of these items at when they reach 100 cumulative value from each individual person. So from y'all, it would be, you know, a person who comes before your board. If once you, 99, you're fine. Once you hit that $100, you have to fill out that form. Probably not going to happen, but I'm holding out hope. No one's ever tried to bribe me. Maybe one of our boards and commissions will be given a gift. Now you'll see that the asterisk next to food, that's because if you are required or forced to sit next to that person close enough to enjoy the meal where you can have a conversation, you get extra funds. We want to pay you for your suffering and pain from having to talk to this person. So go ahead and order that appetizer, get that to-go meal, get the dessert, whatever you want. You've earned it by having to sit there. Now, if they send you gift cards or a fruit basket, you only get $100. But if you have to have that conversation, milk it, get that extra food, get that doggy bag. Additional rules, we have 5 extra ones. Doing business with the city. So city council members are prohibited from entering into any contracts with the city for the term of their service that cannot exceed $1,000. So if it's a one-term council member, they could do 333 per year. If it's a full 9-year, it's even less. I'm not going to do the math, but it's for their full term, not each individual elected time. So there's a time on there. Representations and appearances. I usually have a hat. I just left it at home, but this is where you have to remember which hat you're wearing. So if you're on next door and you're going, man, let me tell you, some stuff went down. We want you to say, hey, as Mr. Lusky, as your neighbor and a resident, my opinion is this. Or you say, as a member of the BSC, my opinion is this. And so we want you to put that out there so that there's no question as to which capacity you're talking in, whether it's your official BSC capacity or your, hey, I'm your neighbor, this is my opinion capacity. It's not as big of a deal for you all. You are fortunately under the radar to a lot of people, but if you ever decide to go to city council, the animal advisory board, or planning and zoning, people want to know. They are very curious your opinion on euthanasia and apartments. And you better be clear as to which hat you're wearing because they will come and talk to you. Trust me, I've read them. And so representations and appearances, you also cannot go for 2 years after your term on here and represent somebody for money in front of your board. Now you can volunteer time pro bono, represent them for free. That's fine. You can also go in front of any other board and get paid. You just can't go in front of your own. So just keep that in mind. Misuse and disclosure of official information. As Andrew talked, in the unfortunate or unlikely event that somebody decides to sue the board based on a decision you made, you get the privilege of sitting in a very small conference room with me, and I will provide you legal advice. State law and the code of ethics says whatever I tell you in that room stays in that room. You can't take it out of there. You can't share it with anybody. Otherwise, we'd have the door open and we'd be streaming it, right? So, okay. Participate in procurement. So this is just more educational for you since only city council approves the contracts. We require that there be a separate process for purchasing and approval. State law says exactly how we go out there for bids and attract all that. So we prohibit city council members from being actively involved in that process. It's decided by a staff member, there's a committee, it's all done in accordance to state law. If we find out a vendor or a council member has gone around the process, we disqualify that vendor. We want to make sure that every time we use tax dollars, it's done in accordance with state law. So like I said, if you ever want to sit on the city council, don't get real friendly with the vendors, okay? And campaign contributions. This is the one that applies to future member candidates as well as sitting candidates. We prohibit the acceptance of campaign contributions from anybody who is suing the city for damages of $25,000 or more, excluding attorney fees and court costs. Purpose of that is to prohibit somebody from buying a verdict. So we just want to keep that in mind. So I went super fast. I know this is my favorite topic. It may be yours. You may have trouble sleeping tonight. If so, you can read a full copy of the text in chapter 2 of the city's code of ordinances. I'm happy to send you a link if you would like that. Now, just let me know. It is my favorite thing. If you have any questions, you can ask for a written opinion from me. The good news with that is it's basically a get out of jail free card. So if you tell me the facts and you go, this is the situation, this is what I'm about to do. Is it okay or is it a violation? I will give you a written response based on what I believe the Ethics Commission will determine under the code. If no matter what, you have this email or this piece of paper, you have your get out of jail free card. If I'm wrong, I'm in trouble, not you, because you relied on my opinion. So we've gone through all that. You discovered that your neighbor or another person on another board or commission, because obviously you were all fine folks, you're not going to violate the rules, so it's not going to be your fellow members. But if you discover someone might have violated the rules, what are you going to do? You can file a written complaint with the city clerk's office. That complaint must be signed and sworn, must state the name of the person who you believe violated the code, the section of the code you believe they have violated, and it must have as best facts as you can provide, as much information so that the ethics board can go, okay, and it must be within 1 year of the violation, the alleged violation. Once that has been submitted to the city clerk's office, she's going to hand it to me. And I'm going to look at it and go, yep, these items have been met. And I will give it to the Independent Ethics Review Board. I'm sorry, I have the hiccups. Try to do it quietly. The Independent Ethics Review Board will look at it and say, okay, it's a two-part process. Yes, if these things are all true, it could be a violation, they'll have a hearing. If they look at it and go, if this is all true, it's not a violation, they will dismiss the complaint. And if they go through it and say, hey, you know what, this is a violation, they can issue sanctions. The sanctions start, letter of notification, basically a little slap on the wrist, don't do that, we're disappointed in you, all the way down to the removal. So because they did not appoint these individuals, only city council did, city council is the only people who can remove them. And as city council is elected in, the voters are the only people who can remove them. And so if the ethics board determines that the behavior is just such an incredible violation, they will publish this on the website and in the newspaper, the violation, that the board's recommendation is recall. That still will not prevent anybody from doing a petition. A petition must be done before a recall election can be held. So do you have any questions or are you ready to play?
What question?
Yes.
A simple question. As a board member, can I give campaign donation to anybody running for City of Sugar Land?
Absolutely. Just follow the election code, and as long as they report it like they're supposed to, you're perfectly fine. You're not. No, the limit is only if you're suing the city.
No, it's not suing, just campaign.
Not suing us. You can pick whoever you want to be your next representative, and you may make a campaign contribution. Yes, sir. You have a question? You sure?
I think the rental properties are already on open line. I can go find it. Can you give me the address of Ajay?
Do y'all have any more ethics questions?
This is part of it.
All right, we're gonna play now to make sure you're paying attention. This is where the people who were already here in October know the answers. So shout them out and save your friends here. So we're gonna spin because we're playing the game of life or the game of ethics. So we're gonna increase the revenue and promote tourism within the city. And we want to install kayak-friendly boat ramps. So council members said, I have this wonderful idea. Let's do this. Now, just so happens that the council member's daughter owns an inflatable kayak business. Light bulbs are going off, right? Excellent. Y'all are paying attention. Oh, this story's gonna build. It's like a choose your own ending kind of thing. So yes, we got the little light bulb going up. We probably have a conflict of interest.
So we're doing that. Okay, because obviously they're a supportive parent. This council member makes some phone calls and gets the Parks Board involved. So the boat ramp idea is on the very next Parks Board agenda. This is great. Let's talk about it. And the Parks Board is thrilled to death and they want positive feedback. Are there concerns that the council member use their position to get an item on the agenda that may impact their child?
Yes.
I'm so proud of y'all. So the Parks Board, so they're enthusiastic about this. They endorse it. They think it's great. And you know what would really make this good? Food trucks. Parks Board says, let's add food trucks to this. This is the best thing ever. Let's make people's tummy happy, float them down the river. So the next stop for this is now Planning and Zoning Commission. So Planning and Zoning Commission is going, they're listening to all this and all this is happening. And as the idea is being presented, we have a P and Z commissioner text their spouse and said, honey, you go buy that food truck. This is it. We are gonna retire. We're gonna make food in a truck. So do we have a violation yet? Okay, who has a conflict of interest?
P and Z commissioner,
Why do they have a conflict of interest?
because they're proposing something for planning and zoning, but letting their spouse or somebody know. That when they're.
Do you think there's an issue? What do you think the issue is?
Because Planning and Zoning Commission, if they are going to approve it in the later stages, that will be cause of a conflict.
I think the percentage law kicks in, right? You have to have, if you have a certain percentage of interest, then you have a conflict then.
I am so proud of y'all. Y'all are the first board that caught that aspect. The part that was the trick question
10%.
was that the other boards have all said, oh, because they had secret information on the food truck, but that was presented at a public meeting. But y'all are the first board that picked on this conflict of interest, so you've made my heart proud. It is a conflict of interest for them to vote on something that may help them have income. So if I had gold stars, I'd pass them out. So now we have this violation for that. Excellent. So the boat ramp is just the best thing ever. And so now they're taken to SLDC and 4B. For those of you who are not familiar, those are our economic development corporations that offer incentives using sales tax dollars. So this has come up to SLDC and 4B and see if they can offer some incentives to make sure the city attracts the absolute best kayak company ever. Some outside information is the SLDC is also city council. So basically them changing hats. So the SLDC is all city council members. So our parent is sitting in the SLDC meeting. So that and the 4B, which is made up of some residents, offer incentives because they think it's great. So both boards determine the company is the clear winner and they offer all kinds of money to get her to relocate her kayak business here to Sugar Land on Oyster Creek and the Brazos River. Do we have a violation?
Parent voted, yes, she has a conflict.
Yes. And what should the parent have done?
Reclused herself.
And
But also divulge that.
Well, yeah, and
file the conflict of interest form with Linda.
Yeah,
Perfect.
also if the parent owns 10% or more of the company.
This is also true because it's
10%, yeah.
it's your parent, your spouse, or your children. So that's a second reason. Yes, sir. So now the finance is secured, Parks Board endorsement and zoning in place, they grant the daughter the exclusive license. So the first 6 months of this operation went fantastic, okay? Everybody wants to kayak in alligator infested waters. So the kayak companies made some money, food trucks made some money. Unfortunately, Labor Day weekend, those alligators are like, this is the end of the season, let's do something, you're full from the food trucks. And they did one of the kayakers. So the kayaker sues the inflatable kayak company. Obviously, this daughter doesn't have much money because they had to pay her to move her inflatable kayaks here. So the city also gets sued. And the city council members have the misfortune of having to go sit in a tiny conference room with me and talk about legal advice. Do we have any concerns without council member participating in that?
the council member shouldn't really have been involved in any of this from the get-go.
Correct. So this council member is just
Racking it up.
in a really bad place. So the council member cannot sit in that executive session because they have a vested interest or conflict of interest based on the outcome of this. From either their daughter's income, but also because they have the conflict from suggesting this all along. So city council then settles this lawsuit, revokes the daughter's exclusive license and said, you know what, it's a free-for-all. Bring your own boat, bring your own food. We don't care. The alligators, your friends, have at it. We're not involved anymore. So there's a local resident and business owner, he's kind of mad. Because he was like, I want in on this. I should have gotten the check. I should have been able to start this business. So then he sues the city because he wanted those incentive payments. So we had a lawsuit that was settled for the alligator bite. And now we have this other guy who sued the city and filed an ethics complaint saying, wait a minute, what about me? So we're at the day of reckoning, in the last square of the whole game. And we have to decide what the Independent Ethics Review Board receives and hear the complaint, what violations, if any, would they sustain. You've already pointed out the conflict of interest, and we've gone through all of those. So when I presented this to the Independent Ethics Review Board, their recommendation was recall of that council member. And they voted unanimously in their practice session to post that in the newspaper and suggest a petition be formed. So that tells you what this Independent Ethics Review Board thinks is the most extreme thing you can do. So with that, thank you so much for playing. You win, you're good for a year. But if you have questions, feel free to contact me. And if you want that get out of jail free card, I like writing them because it makes me feel important. So thank you all for your time. Yes, sir.
So if you've taken the training in October and we got the certificate, when did you get the certificate again for the training?
You don't get a certificate because Linda's over there and Nicole's over there writing her name down in the secret book. So you're not gonna get a phone call, oh, sign-in sheet, you're writing your own name down. You're not gonna get an email. Eleanor is saying, hey, you haven't done that. But you get the privilege of coming back next year if you're reappointed. I don't know where you are in your terms, and seeing if we have the same game or a new game. But the outcome is always the same because you're very ethical people. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, that was the final item on the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Look at turn.
Wonderful, meeting adjourned. Thank